How's it going, YouTube? Welcome back to another video on the channel, and today we are back on the tier maker back to back, and today we are talking about board breakers. If you want 5% off any single or sealed product, head over to tier0games.com and use code GALZO5 at checkout. So, new format, new decks, Kastria, Branded, Labyrinth, Sprite, Swordsoul, Runic, Naturia. It's very diverse, but again, I think Branded, Kastria, Labyrinth are like at the top tier, and this is what I want to look at this through the lens of. And of course, before we begin, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you want to support the channel even further, consider joining as a member, getting early access to all of my deck lists. And of course, if you want to support even further, get your own Despion merch now live, www.galzo.shop. You can find the link in the description as well. Everything is $10 off. Enjoy that. And let's start by talking about the importance of board breakers during this format. So if you've seen the last YCS, where in the finals, this Branded dude got his entire field locked, you have to be able to answer to that. Otherwise, it's basically an auto lose in this scenario. So board breakers are going to be extremely important during this format. And I think that it's really, really hard to decipher and decide what you should play. In the top lists in YCS Vegas, we've seen a bunch of everything that appears on this list. Honestly, like a lot of things have been on people's list because, you know, it's an early format. We're just trying to figure out what to actually play to out things, and I think it's super important to discuss it and see what we can come up with. So I think that we're going to start with the Lava Golem, of course. I think Lava Golem is in the good tier. I think it's in the good tier because it automatically it rips two monsters off of your opponent's field. They have no way to respond to it. I am gonna put in the raw sphere mode as well because I want to kind of compare between the two. And honestly, let's talk about the kaiju as well. I think kaijus are gonna be definitely decent. I think a 1-for-1 like this, that, you know, it's just a 1-for-1. You waste one card to get rid of one card. It could be something like an Arise Heart, which sometimes your opponent will play around things like Nibiru and Super Poly and stuff like that, and just put up one Arise Heart with 3 materials, and this gets rid of it. It's just simple as that. Lava Golem, on the other hand, is a little bit more than that. It special summons itself by tributing 2 monsters on your opponent's field. But the thing is, it does special summon. So I do want to look at it through the lens of the Ibli lock. If you have Ibli on your field, you cannot place Lava Golem on the field. So I think it's still very good against a lot of decks. It's still very good against Branded, even though they get a Mirror Jade effect at the end phase. So it's kind of like weird. But I think that Raw Sphere mode, out of all of these, we haven't seen much of it, but I think it's one of the only like reasonable outs. Your opponent can still play around Sphere mode, obviously, but the fact that it normal summons and gets around the Ibli lock, I think it's still a relatively good card. I might even go ahead and put Lava Golem in decent for now. And Sphere mode, again, maybe they're all decent. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I might change my mind on this, but this is definitely like the ranking I would put them in. I think it's kind of like weird, but you know, I'm thinking about the Ibli lock mostly, and just because of that reason, Sphere mode is better. On the other hand, your opponent can play around all of these, and the only thing that you can do is just a kaiju on a Kastria board. So they might be all indecent, to be honest. Dark Hole, for the specific reason of the Ibli lock, I think it's a very good card. It's not like extremely strong, but it's definitely something that, one, you can search off of Thrust, which is extremely important in my opinion. 2, it gets rid of stuff on your board as well, which I think is crucial, especially with Ibli. And 2, it does enough against Kastria. If you still have zones and you're able to play, then I think it's solid. Next one, Dark Ruler No More is like probably not as good in this format, right? If you don't have zones anymore, then what does this card do? Sprite, things like Totally Awesome, they're not really prevalent during this format. So I think it has a little bit less of an effect than it previously had. And I think Droplet is probably going to be like around the same thing. It's good, but I think when it comes to board breakers, it's like decent, and I'm looking for stuff that are actually good, because you need a big toolbox to auto-cost your board, or even a branded board. And I think that if you're under a Rise Hard, this card doesn't even work. It's kind of weird in this format. It's good against branded, but I think it's like decent at most at this point. But Lightning Storm is going to be good, specifically I think for back row decks, Labyrinth, and even branded. This card at 2, even if you search it off of Thrust with like a 1 copy, then it's definitely good. You need to be able to break your opponent's board and put up a lot of power on the board in order to out your opponent's board, obviously. And I think that Lightning Storm specifically is a going second card. It's a normal spell card. I think it could be in the good category for this format. It's kind of weird. Now that I'm thinking about it, like, everything seems like super weird when you're looking at it through like, am I playing against branded? Did I get Ibly locked? Did I get Gimmick Puppet locked? Am I playing versus Labyrinth, which is like, you know, your hand trap, your board breakers need to be extremely versatile, because the format is still like pretty open, especially if you're like a more of a locals regional player where you will encounter more rogue decks. I think talents might even be like in the top good, you know? I think that, again, sometimes it's just not enough. It might be very strong still. We'll see about that. Maybe with Thrust, it's valid. You can draw 2, you can take a card, you can rip. I think it might be very strong. It's not like extremely strong as it was in the last format, but I think it's really decent. Now if you take, you can break a brand board really easily if you just take the Mirror Jade. They have to activate it, then like, you know, they have to banish one of their monsters, so you don't take it. Maybe don't take the Mirror Jade. If you're playing in the mirror, it's really, really important to banish your own Mirror Jade if your opponent tries to take it. Against Labyrinth, it's like, meh. You can rip a card out of their hand, or just like gain card advantage against them. But overall, it's like very strong, but definitely not as strong as it was, I think. Ultimate Slayer is just going to be in mediocre because of a Rise Hard. I think it's very solid against branded, but what are the decks that can actually play this card? This is like what I wonder, honestly. And maybe because of that, it's just like not that good. Yeah. Evenly is very strong. I think that Evenly, again, you do have the asterisks of an Ibly lock. You do have the asterisks of a Gimmick Puppet lock. But I'm not going to address that specifically, because like, just like as a card, it's good against every one of the top tier decks. So I think there's no reason why not to put it at the top. Super versatile. It's a trap. It doesn't lose to a lot of negation types. And it's just super good. Pancratops is good, but it's not, you know, you don't have room for this anymore, to be honest. You don't have room for this. And honestly, like, the Fenrir, and I'm looking at it just through the lens of a board breaker, it's like kind of decent. Like, which decks are actually going to play like just the Fenrirs to break boards like we did in Darkwing Blast? It's probably like mediocre, specifically as a board breaker. I think like these two, you need your cards to do a bunch in order to put them in your deck, because the decks are so oppressive that you can't afford for like a 1-for-1. You need a big win, right? So yeah, I think this is why Fenrir is going to be there. Super Poly is probably going to be here. I think it's still an extremely powerful card. It always will be when you have dark monsters on the field. To be honest, it's good against branded, it's good against Labyrinth, it's good against Castrio, to be honest, if they don't play carefully. If they play greedy, you can take away a big part of their board. Also going first, you know, if you hit them at the right spot with like Rise Hard and Shangri-La on board, it's pretty much game over. A card that is so strong that you can respond to when the meta is like a third fusions, it's just too strong not to be in the top tier. And I think Change of Heart is very good. I think let's take all the take spells, Mind Control, Econ. I think these two are really good still, especially if you're playing a mirror match with Kashira. If you want to take a Mirror Jade, again, it's the same thing as Talents, just like less versatile. It's a one-off that you can search off of Thrust, and I think that these two are super impactful. On the other hand, I think that Econ is actually very strong. It's very good in a lot of decks. It's very good in Branded. It's very good going up against Kashira. And even with Kashira, if you're trying to break a board, this is a very good way to do this. And I think it's extremely versatile and good. Slumber, it's just like, there's no room for it. And Kurkar is I think, sort of like decent. It's like the worst of the kaijus. I think if people start playing this, people are going to play around it, and it's really going to be hard. Maybe it's a bit better. But again, your opponent can play around this. It's only good against Kashira. And this is why I think it's not just like as versatile. Like if you want to pick 3 board breakers to be in your main or side, will you actually pick this? Does this do enough for you to help you break a board? I think the answer to that is just like not enough. It's just not enough. I think Raigeki is going to be like around here. Again, it's searchable. It outs a lot of boards. It kind of sucks against Branded Opening. Labyrinth doesn't really lose to it. Maybe it's like top decent at best, just because it's less versatile, I would say. And Chalice, again, it's like a good yeah, it's kind of like better than Droplet right now. You can just negate a card, but again, it doesn't really do enough, I think, just like as a power level thing. I think Alpha is like, I don't know, it's like mediocre, bottom mediocre. And then we have the books. I think the books are probably like this, depending on your deck, right? I think you would play, maybe if you have good discards, if you're playing a trap deck, maybe in some builds of Branded, you can play this. Maybe it's actually not, maybe I'm going to go with a hot take. They're going to be like very good, okay? They're going to be very, very good. So maybe we do this, actually. I think this is correct. And I think the reason why I'm going to be putting... These are tied, basically, okay? It really depends. Book of Eclipse can get ashed. And if Ash is in the format, I think it's super problematic for this card. However, it's still going to be in the very strong category because it just outs incredible boards. It outs everything. And same goes for Lunar Eclipse. Maybe Lunar Eclipse, if it resolves, it's less effective. And it's also like, maybe it's the discard, only 2 targets. It has to target as well. So maybe it's like something along these lines. It's based on a lot of different builds. It will depend on which one you play in your deck, which format, which deck do you put this up against. Book of Eclipse is a little bit more versatile. Even though it can get stopped by Ash, but if I activate this and get ashed in my Branded deck, I'm chilling. I'm fine. I mean, I probably lose anyway, but if I'm going up against a full Kashira board, but I think this is pretty much it. Maybe even like this. Yeah. Concealing is like horrible. Thrust. Maybe it's even like this. I'm sorry that I keep changing it up so much, but I think like as I'm thinking about it, I'm doing this live, fresh, no preparation. And I think that Thrust is just like a very powerful card not to play. It's a board breaker. You can go first with it. You can set a card with it. It's just like a very powerful card. And I think it can get you to any, like, it can get you to this. It gets you to this. It gets you this, everything. It's powerful. It's really, really powerful. And now it can get you some nasty traps as well. It's going to get a D barrier from your deck if your opponent is not careful. So, Herald of the Abyss. If you don't know what this card does, you pay 1,500 life points. You declare a type and an attribute, and your opponent must send a monster that fits both that type and attribute from their field to the graveyard. So, the idea behind this is that you can call Fire Psychic, and your opponent has to get rid of a monster that fits that specifically Shangri-Ira. Also, Dark Worm, Mirror Jade. And the thing is that your opponent sends it. So it's not sent by a card effect. It's not sent by your opponent's card effect, not on your opponent's card. It gets through unaffected monsters. It's very, very good. I think it might even be like a good card. But again, with a lot of other cards in this list, it maybe just doesn't do enough, right? Maybe this even goes down to here. It's not enough. It's a very good 1-for-1, but it's a cool tech. We've seen people play this. We've been working on this for a couple months now, just trying this card out. And, you know, I think it's good. It's a solid card. It gets around a lot of different things. You pay life points, but, you know, it is what it is. Hey Trunade is probably going to be like around here. And Duster, just like such a good card. If you draw this against a lot of decks, it's just like super, super powerful. So I think this is going to be the list. Let me know down in the comments below. What do you guys think about that? I think it's pretty representative of the format. I'm happy with Evenly still being the strongest board breaker in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! At the moment. I think this list is pretty good. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Leave a thumbs up on the video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to get early access to all of my deck lists, join as a member. It helps support the channel. And of course, if you want to support even further, get your own Despian merch, www.galzo.com. Check it out. Everything is 10% off. Sorry, $10 off. It's really cheap right now. Thank you so much for watching again. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.